Hey everyone, this is Maregaal Ben Yaakov, and today is May 13th, 2022. It is around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's 91 degrees here in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Anyway, welcome to my YouTube channel, and if you're watching off of Facebook, welcome to my wall. Anyway, today I want to talk about the news that came out on March 24th. I know it's been about a month and a half, but just kind of learned about it about 2 weeks ago, and so I don't watch too much. I watch a lot of YouTube, but it's kind of selective, you know, and it's hot, like I said, so excuse me for wiping my face or something. Anyway, on March 24th, news came out that an archaeologist that was in Israel doing some digging around there at the supposed Mount Ebal, the place where you read in Deuteronomy and in Joshua, where according to Deuteronomy 11 and 27 and Joshua 8, you know, the children of Israel and Joshua was supposed to build an altar there and make it with stones, untouched stones, you know, keep them virgin, and make an altar there, then coat them with plaster or certain stones with plaster, and write the whole entire law of Moses on there, clearly and plainly according to Deuteronomy. Well, they already found an altar there at Mount Ebal. And I guess in the 1980s, okay, there was an archaeologist there digging around, and he kept pretty good notes, and he would sift the dirt, whatever, or he'd do it all doing it all dry. And so, but he kept notes, and he put one, like, he'd say where he's pulling dirt from and piling it somewhere else to get out of the way so he could keep working. He had put notes, this is where it's from. And so anyway, this archaeologist, a guy named what's his name, his Dr. Scott Stripling, decided to he got a grant or a lease or permission anyway to go horse around, and him and his team went, it's kind of a lost technique, or like it's like finding stuff through water, sifting, I suppose. It's like gold panning, I suppose, or just using water to shake all the dirt out and stuff. Whatever the case is, they didn't get into the water technique, but anyway, they one of the people there found a lead folded book, per se, or lead paper, if you want to call it that. And it was so brittle that they didn't want to like crack it open because the little corner even broke off. And so they took it to, I think, Czechoslovakia, I think, anyway, to have it scanned. I can't say this word, tomographic scans, tomographic scans, anyway, they could read it. And to their surprise, they actually saw it turned out to be a curse tablet. There's like 20 words in there, and it kind of is translated like this, and this is the oldest surviving incident where YHW is mentioned. I say the 3 letters versus what you see today, YHWH. Some people say Yahweh, I say Yehovah, you know, but nonetheless, you know, in American you might hear Jehovah, but anyway. So it goes like this. Apparently I got to do a little bit of editing here because I read it wrong when I was making my video at my shop. So the tablet is 40 letters, and it says, curse, 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 cursed by the God Yehovah. You will die cursed. Cursed, you will surely die. Cursed by Yehovah. Cursed, cursed, cursed. Now I use the name Yehovah because of how you read Hebraic names, and like Joshua is Yehoshua, or like Joseph is Yehoseph, and so this is why I use Yehovah. Anyway, that's what the tablet says, and it has only 40 letters. All right, thank you. Anyway, that's it. Well, they did analysis on it, and I'm not sure if they did the analysis of the tomographic scans in Czechoslovakia or not, but because they did several of them, like where the metal come from, and scanning through to see what was actually, if anything's written on there. And anyway, you could check out their own news. They got their own Facebook or YouTube channel. And anyway, the metal lead comes from the Aegean or the Greece area, and they think it might be dated around 1400 BCE, which is really old, like the late Bronze Age or early Iron Age. Okay, somewhere around there. And so these guys were just like, oh my God, these guys could write. Somebody could write anyway and form like sentence structures. And so the sentence structures are kind of like somewhat little repetitive, like the Psalms are, blessed are you in the name of the Lord, blah, 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 or blessed in the name. You see this in the Psalms, and especially in the Hebrew. But nonetheless, I'm assuming they're Christian guys, that they just kind of make the leap. This is Joshua, and blah, 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 or just assuming that. And maybe they could have wrote the whole entire book of the law, because it kind of parallels with Deuteronomy 11:27 and Joshua 8, which it kind of does, but running along with the idea that Joshua did that is, a little, I don't know, putting the cart before the horse type of thing. I don't mean to disprove or anything or be a doubter like a doubting Thomas, but I kind of know my culture. That our elders back in the past erased our history. And they kind of, like what you see, like I go into why I left biblical Judaism in a three video series I made. And one of them had to deal with the Exodus, and that's what kind of got me out of biblical Judaism, because I saw the fakeness of the stories. And it turns out, we were the Hyksos people that were conquered by King Amos, or Amose, as one guy mentioned it. I will say his name. Anyway, and King Amose, or Amos, drove us to Canaan, or the Hyksos to Canaan. And the Egyptians took back their territory because the Hyksos, the Asiatics who came down from Canaan somewhere, the colorful dressed people who were shepherds, and Hyksos were also known as the Shepherd Kings, which is interesting. They ruled about 100 years, and in one of my videos, I go on how to figure out the age of the earth, and according to the biblical text, what the authors of the Torah said. Now, the people like Dr. Scott Stripling, he will, he's like a pro-Bible guy. So, it's like they say here in the South, bless his heart. Anyway, the reason why I'm saying this, because they want to promote that the book is inerrant, Moses really existed, and these things actually happened. Where reality seems that there is a ring of truth around it, then they built up a myth around the ring of truth and changed the genuine history. Where it seems like genuine Israelites, who became Israel later on, were Canaanites, and some of the Canaanites went down into Egypt, and those people came up and just kind of blended in with the rest, and some people kept their culture, like the Philistines, things like that, where eventually there was a 12 tribe confederacy, before the monarch. So that's according to the Torah itself. Now, when Israel really came to be, the first evidence of it by name is like the 12th century BCE, when Israel is mentioned by name on a stela of Egypt. And I forgot the name of it. I'll put it right here. But anyway, the Lord's name, or Yehovah, I just mimicked it. It's exactly like this carving right here. I just did the extra with the vines here. So this would be, it's actually written backwards because there's not a, according to these scholars, there was not a formalized method of writing, according to them, at that time. And granted, this is a lead book. I mean, it's not like paper and parchment, but and it's so small. So anyway, it's actually read this way, where typical Hebrew is read that way. So this is the Y, H, and Yod, or Wa, as Y A W A W, or Vav. Okay, I don't know what I just said, but so this is let's try it. This is Yod Hey Vav. Okay, and if you were to put that in modern Hebrew, okay. So, and they were kind of offshoot. This typical writing is Proto-Canaanite, or Proto-Hebraic Semitic. Okay, it's like the first. I can't say it's the first alphabet because the people could write. The people of all of that area could write an alphabet, because we can see that with the Ugaritic texts that have been found. It's cuneiform writing, but it's still an alphabet. And so their axe head symbols formed their particular letters. So there was an alphabet around, which and the Ugaritic people were around 1400 and older, so BCE, that is. And so just to offshoot it from Egyptian hieroglyphics, like you'll see the symbol for waters like this, then you'll see eventually the Proto-Hebrew is kind of like how my symbol, when I sign my name, you can see it right down there. That's a kind of during the time of Hezekiah's time, 700 BCE. Okay, it's kind of like goes like this, goes like that. And I'll put it on the side here. So I hope I'm making a little bit of sense. In fact, here it is right here. I have it on my wall. This is from the Hezekiah's tunnel, where this is modern Hebrew, which is off of Aramaic font when we came out of Persia, when Cyrus the Great took over the whole place, and he made Aramaic the kind of like the international trade language, I guess. Anyway, this is Proto-Hebrew. I call it real Hebrew, what they used in biblical Hebrew. So I call it biblical Hebrew, or real Hebrew for me. As you can see, that's what it looks like. And see if there's an M on here. This is see, that would be like an M there. I don't know if I have an M written down on here. Nope. Anyway, that's it down there. But you can see, like, there's an M right there, if you can make that out. You can see kind of a line. Then where in Egyptian hieroglyphics, the water is kind of a zigzag. And that's where our M comes from, too, up and down. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, they make the great leap. These scholars that, well, dang, if they could write this, they had the ability to write the whole entire Torah down. Yeah, they could have. The Ugaritic people could write, and it was a Semitic language, okay? And so to say that no one could write, sentences or something like that is kind of absurd. Even the Code of Hammurabi, even though it's Babylonian, it was 1700 BCE. So you can't just make the leap. Moses commanded Joshua, and this must be the time of Joshua. Yes, it's 1400, and according to this timeline that I was saying, I might be jumping all over the map, and I'm sorry for that. But if you go to like Genesis through Second Chronicles, okay, or if it's the Christian Bible, Genesis through Malachi, you take all the dates there, you add them. Creation was like, I don't know, I'm taking a guess. It's like, I'll put it right here, according to this paper I just did. I break it all down. It's like 6184, I believe. 6100, or 6,184 years ago was creation, okay? And that's the biblical mindset. And so the Exodus happened according to the biblical timeline, as 1495. Well, they date this lead around 1400, somewhere around there, 1300 to 1400 BCE. Well, that's fine and dandy, but if you read the Torah itself, like there's a guy named Simcha Jacobovich or something like that. I'll put his picture and his name here. He made a few videos, trying to prove or disprove the Exodus, and he gives all these theories and blah blah blah, claiming to be a reporting journalist, type of thing. And but he fails to even do these timelines. If he did say it, I missed it. The biblical timeline, because he's like, why do the rabbis, say the 1250 Exodus? Because Ramses is mentioned, or Pi Ramses. And in history books, the Egyptians built Pi Ramses, and in the Exodus it's just Ramses, and. But what the reality is the Hyksos people ruled in a town called Avaris, and Ramses was actually built right on top of it, or right on the offshoot off of it, after King Ahmose kicked us out, and as in a celebration, type of thing, and it was just a good location. Ramses was built kind of near on top of it and slash on top of it, and so, or near enough, okay? And so the time the authors of, I say plural there, authors of the Torah came around, they were using the modern names, like, okay, what was this land called? What was this land called, in the 10th century? Where I'm at in Hot Springs, I don't know. But if I come to find out, that'd be later, But if I'm going to make a book to give people a general idea, I'm just going to say Hot Springs, okay? But if you were to find out the actual name the Indians used, and they had a city here, and you found a dwelling, well, that was the original name, that particular name. And so, but I'm going to call it, for argument's sake, Hot Springs, okay? But it's generally speaking. And so we know that the Torah came later. I mean, anybody who educates themselves just by reading the book, that's how I got out of Judaism. Because me just reading the book without any outside sources, I'm just reading it as an Orthodox guy, and I'm like, what in the world, dude? I was like, come on, bro. It's like, okay, I give you, like in my video I say, I have to offshoot, kind of give you a lead up, which I already gave you a little bit of the end. But in Genesis 36, and I'm not sure what verse, like 31 maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing. I have it right here, but I'll put it up on the side. Anyway, in Genesis 36, it says, it's talking about the kings of Edom, the offshoot of Esau, Isaac's two kids was Jacob and Esau. Well, Esau became the people of Edom, and Genesis 36 talks about the kings of Edom. Then all of a sudden, somewhere in chapter 36, it says, and these are the kings of Edom before there were any kings of Israel. Well, hello, Moses can't say that type of thing, because the kings, according to the book, the kings didn't come around until 500 years later, rounded off even more accurately, 450 years later ish. So let me see if I can find it real quick, okay? I'm reading out of the Pentateuch and Haftorahs by the Sanchino Press, something like that. And this is one of my favorite Torahs here. Anyway, let's go to Genesis 36, like I said, and I'll read it to you. This is 40. Almost. Oh, one more to go. 36. Let's see, where is it? I said 31, so let's try 31. Yeah, it's 31. All right, let me back. It's on 2 pages here, so 31. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. Okay, so who's writing this? So obviously it came after. That's plural there. Kings of Israel. So anyway, so it has to at least come after King David and Saul, because that makes 2. So that's at least 500 years after the fact, after supposedly Moses. But then we have the Ark of Noah came to rest on one of the mountains of Arartu, not Ararat. And it's a region, not a single mountain called Ararat. It's a region. And so Arartu existed between 860 BCE and 590 when the Medes smashed them and got rid of them. And then when you read Nehemiah 9, I believe it's 9, I don't have that book with me, it's in the car. But anyway, I believe it's Nehemiah 9, if not it's 11. But there you can see when Ezra and the people are reading the book of the law, and they're reading on the first day of the 7th month, blah blah blah, and you can see. Now you have to see my why I turned away from biblical Judaism to get the details. I don't want to do all the editing, but just you can look it up yourself. But in Nehemiah, they're reading the law, and it's in the 7th month when they're reading it, and they see that the Feast of Tabernacles is listed in the law, and so they go get ready. Well, they don't mention, now this is the first day of the 7th month. There's no mention of Yom Kippur at all, which is on the 10th. So, but after they celebrate the feast, because it goes from the 15th to the 21st. Then on the 22nd is a special rest day. And then all of a sudden on the 25th or the 24th, I can't remember. I always confuse it. Anyway, I'll just say the 25th for right now. But I think it's the 24th. But on the I'll just say 24th. But on the 24th of that month, they put on sackcloth and start putting on ashes, or earth, and repenting and confessing their sins. Well, that's a Yom Kippur they're doing. And so you can see it wasn't on the 10th. So we know that the current Torah was manufactured after like 390, something like that. Because Chronicles gives a list of Zerubbabel and his kids. So we kind of know the dating a little bit of how old these things are, and so it's kind of, so we see that the current Torah we have today is not the same they had back then. But to go with Dr. Scott and the guess he has on is kind of ludicrous in my opinion. Why? Is because, they go like this. Oh, well, if they could write this, they could write the whole entire law, and just kind of gives us credence, about our faith. I'm like, dude, read your own book. You'll walk away from it, okay? It's just like, Okay, like where is Mount Sinai? Legend for years, centuries, and centuries, it's the Sinai Peninsula. Well, that just, yeah, duh. And if you're using the modern stuff, but if you go to Jabal al-Lutz, you know what the Bible kind of tells you, and even reading the writings of Paul, where he goes down to Arabia to see Mount Sinai. And there's a place there that looks like all the hilltops are totally burned, you know, because they're all black. Well, there's a myth there, you know, that this is God's holy hill zone right in here. Well, guess what? That's not carbon. That's, I think it's basalt, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to look. But it's just a natural black rock. You know, it's no ash, no nothing like that. So it's just myth. You see what I'm saying? And so we changed our history, you know, to say we were, you know, slaves in Egypt when we were actually the enslaver and the oppressor, because we came down to Egypt and actually took it over. We ruled as kings for 100 years. So, but to say, you know, plus the name Yehovah is known in Egypt somewhere too. About there's this one. I can't say this word. Anyway, it's like this, where the king's names are and things like that. And it's somewhere in Egypt where it says, I don't know, it starts with a S, Sadib or something like that. Basically, the nomads, the nomads of Yehovah. And so that's mentioned of Yehovah down in the Egyptian language, okay? Where, you know, Yehovah is mentioned, you know, very rarely, but we see him associated with the same God as El eventually, you know, having the exact same wife, Asherah. Now, according to the biblical text, like in Deuteronomy and Joshua 8, there seems to be a legend in these books that the law was actually written in stone there, in plaster. Now, plaster may not hold up very too long. Maybe in the desert it would, but so if we could find something like that, then you would get the same so-called law maybe the early Klansmen had. But this is before the monarchies came around, at least of Israel, supposedly, you know, not saying tribal warlords or things like that, you know, because David would be kind of he was a monarch, you know, but as, you know, in the early days, like the judges, in time of the judges, you'd be kind of like warlords, you want to call them that, you know, the high elders or judges. Is kind of hard to say, you know, that our culture is just lost. We don't know nothing. It's been kind of wiped out. And so anyway, it's just kind of perplexing how some of these scholars will just go off on a tangent and try to validate scripture by stuff, you know, by saying, reading this words, curse, 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 you know, cursed by the God Yehovah there. All right, I'm back. Anyway, yeah, these guys, these scholars like Dr. Scott Stripling, getting all excited that the Bible is validated, you know. I'm just like, dude, why don't you see things the other way around? Why? Because you can see for yourself that the other way around is proven. You know, it's just like I said with the Yom Kippur, okay? When you look at Nehemiah 9, I wish I had this book. Nehemiah 9, 24th day, okay? Now, in the 24th day of this month, the children of Israel assembled with fasting and with sackcloth and earth upon them, and the seed of Israel separated themselves from all strangers and stood and confessed their sins and iniquities of their fathers. And they stood up in their place and read in the book of the law of the Lord their God 1/4 part of the day, and another 4th part they confessed and worshipped the Lord their God. So why are they doing all this? according to, on the 24th, so here it is on the 24th they're doing this stuff and not the 10th, okay? So the book they had is not the book we have. And so you have all these problems, not just to mention all the mythologies of that we adopted while in Babylon because we were polytheistic and we just liked their polytheism, and so we made them into our myths and just changed all the names to Jewish names to make it more sound great into the upcoming monotheism that came around. We were not monotheistic, man. And, also saying, Yehovah or Yahweh, and this tablet you shouldn't just offshoot stuff because you can see something, if they're dating this around the 1400s BCE, that doesn't mean anything. Because we have stuff from the 8th century where, Yehovah or Yahweh and Asherah are married, okay? So, come on. And so that was the typical thing of the normal polytheism of, you can see in the Ugaritic text, El and Asherah, are married and they have all these kids, and so, come on. So that's why he's called, the father of all gods, because they acknowledge there's many other gods, and El is the father of them all. And so, but later on, kind of deleted all that and just so there's no other god but El and El alone, where before there's acknowledgement of other gods. And so anyway, but somewhere along the line it's kind of like maybe different cultures may saw it as the same being, kind of like the Romans, they have Jupiter, where the Greeks have Zeus, and they just, put it as the same guy, and where they had maybe a father figure too, and they just adopted it outright and just gave them their own names, but El was the chief, God of gods, father of all gods, but somewhere along the line, Yehovah somehow replaced El there, and so people worshipped in all these places, but when you have a myth, there's a ring of truth in the biblical text. There's stuff there. Yeah, you could use it for some things, it's like because they're referring to an actual place when the things are written. It's after the fact. It's kind of like me writing about, Stonehenge like today, but write it as if, let's say Joshua built Stonehenge. Moses told Joshua to build these big megaliths, and set them up in this certain place in England, and blah blah blah, and all of a sudden some later generation, the book is true when it was already there. You see what I'm saying? So, there's a ring of truth there. It's like when the Asiatics came down to Egypt and they were all colorful, all wearing all colorful clothes, they had beards, they were shepherd people, blah, blah, blah. You just can't, say one guy had colorful clothes. No, all of them did. A guy named, say Joseph. And it's just like this Jacob guy, or Simcha, I should say. He was talking about, the Exodus and the people coming down, blah, blah, blah. Here's another oops of the scripture, okay? According to Exodus, the Yahweh or Yehovah meets up with Moses at Mount Horeb, the mountain of the Lord, which is by Jethro. Now, this is the Midianites, so this is Saudi Arabia's zone, according to that myth. That zone, and it says, your ancestors, or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I'm paraphrasing, did not know me by my name, Yehovah. They only know me by God Almighty. Okay? Let's go with that, just for a second. If that's the case, then how did Jacob name his kid Joseph, or Joseph, because his real name is Jehoshaphat, which is a shortened version, and that's the Seth part, but the Yeho is the shortened version of Yehovah, or Yahweh. So it was already known. So there is, just by going to the biblical text, so there's errors all over the place. So you really have to, take it with a grain of salt, okay? And just because, like Mount's, the legend is, he got the law from God himself. All these people, like, look at the Code of Hammurabi. Read it. Read the very beginning. It's pretty dang long about how Marduk, I guess it's Marduk, I could be wrong, blessed him. He gave him his, Hammurabi, that law, hopefully he could be righteous and worthy and all this stuff. And, but, laws are kind of handed down, and here's another thing to throw at, these so-called scholars, it's just like every single kingdom has a law code, okay? Every kingdom has a law code, or a judge. There has to be a set of laws to go by that the people kind of agree with, or they just oust them, and the mob rules. If the mob allows, this government to form and they're cool with it, then that's, but every kingdom has a law, okay? When there's so much fighting, it's just like here, you got the Republicans believing this way, and you got the super liberal Democrats, are just all over the place. There's conflict. What they want is law. You can see what Biden is doing there. It's like lawless and stupidity, no borders, give your money to people don't work for it, and doesn't know anything. It's like he, not to get off on a tangent, but I mean, dude, don't you ever run a business? If I can make, okay, I'm a stone carver. I do stuff like that, okay? This is all Arkansas rock. It used to be from my backyard, literally. So, but if I have all these rocks in my backyard, why would I pay somebody for their rock? I'm what do you call it? I'm independent that way, and so this is kind of in the same context. You just can't do stuff, but nonetheless there's a clashing of mentalities, and so when there's a clash, either there's like a civil war, and the place will be divided, kind of like maybe that's what the real truth was. There might have been a 12 tribe confederacy at one time. Don't really know. We don't have anything. And eventually there was kind of a civil war, and it just broke away, where Judah was kind of strong enough to hold their own, and they kept the south, and Israel got the rest, and so, who knows? I don't know. Or that's the legend, Israel's known as one who wrestles with El. Well, they're in the northern areas, and so the people of Judah were Yahwehists, or, you know what I'm saying, or Yehoas, people of Yehovah. And so it's hard to say, but here's Mount Ebal. Now Ebal could be a place. I mean, you have to have all these could be's, because all this other text throws it all up in the air. And so this is what I'm just trying to say. Anyway, that's my spit out. I'm sorry, just go rambling on and on and on, but nonetheless, there seems to be, the point is, the Bible, what it does is the authors back, it's kind of like putting the words, like, okay, after they know facts of their own time, because I live here in 2022. I know things about Bill Clinton and Obama and blah blah blah, and Trump and this and this and that, but for me, but now I know this, but now I'm writing as if George Washington is prophesying about the future. Well, how does George Washington know that? Or these names, and that's what kind of gives it away, because George Washington all of a sudden knew about, San Francisco, and San Francisco by name didn't exist yet. You see what I'm saying? And so you have that kind of going on, but there's also other things. It just fits like Mount Sinai. Like I said, it looks like the whole tops of the mountains were burned. So there's a legend, God descended at one point, and so became a legend, or God gave the law on Mount Sinai, and that's why the whole mountains were burned up, because our law came from Him Himself, and all the people were afraid when we came out of Egypt. I mean, it's a long ways off. But the Hyksos people, they were defeated and went up to this other Canaanite town, and they just kind of blended in with the rest, and they were just lost to history. So, but that's what the elders changed. They weren't just, it'd just been fine. It's just like, okay, the Hicks, from what I learned, I could be totally wrong, the Hyksos worshiped Set or Seth, however you want to say it. And so they were a little bit monotheistic, I guess, a tad bit, and I could be totally wrong on that. They could have been hippo worshippers. I read that too somewhere, but we don't have too much anything from them themselves, so it's hard to say. And but nonetheless, they were chased up to Canaan, and so here's Israel way down the line. Like I said, our Torah comes after 390, and so we just made this whole history of stuff, Adam and Eve and things like that, and God made it from the dust of the earth and took a little bit of Adam's side, and blah blah blah. And this is a total myth of a Babylonian thing when we're there. So anyway, so I just, it's nice, it's good, to find this tablet. It's great. I mean, it's great, super news, but not to just go off on a tangent and say, oh, the word of God is true. I'm like, dude, come on, there's probably a myth around that mountain already, and now you're finding stuff. Okay, that's kind of cool, but it's like I said, you have like the Hyksos people, their city was Avares, but they're in the biblical text is given the name of Ramses, so come on. Anyway, just watch yourself and don't believe these scholars all the time. It's cool what they find. It does give a ring of truth, and that's kind of cool, but that's all you can come away with, because there's no blunt stuff there. Yes, and back to my point when they were saying, well, they could have, he could have, there might be some, you might find, well, I'm putting words in their mouth, so I won't say that, but they've been saying, well, if they could write all this, they could probably write the whole law, and this gives us a whole new insight, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, really, dude? Come on. It's like I said, you got the Ugaritic people. They had an alphabet, the first alphabet. It's in cuneiform writing. It's not the alphabet that emerged into what we have today in English, like that, but it derives from the Proto-Canaanite Semitic, then biblical Hebrew, then modern Hebrew has nothing to do with the evolution of the alphabet of what turned into be the English alphabet, but nonetheless, yeah, I mean, but you have our I can't say this word right, Armenian letters, all these tablets, all written there. Now, I'm not quite sure that's in cuneiform writing, but I believe that's in blunt cuneiform writing, and where the Ugaritic text is an alphabet, so the people of the area could read an alphabetic language, so it's not far-fetched. They could read, and how far spread, just because you finally found something. So you can't just run away with get all these grandiose ideas, yeah, but keep in mind that every single kingdom has a law. Now, whether you find that law is a whole different story. Like Code of Hammurabi was put on black basalt, if I'm saying that right. you know, and it's there to, you know, you could find it right in the, when they found it, right in the middle of the desert, just sitting there. Or the Moabite stela, it's just sitting there, you know. Hey, it's just a black stone, you know. Israel, they have, you know, if Israel had something like that, it hasn't been found yet. Or, you know, other cultures, they put it in stone, they took the time. So they had to have stone masons or stone carvers like me, you know, or they put it on parchment, you know, or like lead or something like that, and just so small, but and not easily found, you know. But if it was on parchment or papyrus, you know, because they, like the Egyptians did on papyrus, they wrote on there. But you know, may have rotted over time. But you know, as our culture's just been kind of lost, and you're just kind of taking the Bible too much for granted. All right. But that's good enough for now, man. And I appreciate you guys watching. Just be careful of what you believe from people, especially, you know, when it comes to biblical, you know, or evangelical folks, you know, because they want to try and validate the book every which way possible, you know, and it's the Word of God. And I'm like, dude, if it was the Word of God, there wouldn't be any errors, you know, and no contradictions and things like that. You know, it's not like, oh, it's my understanding, you know. No, it's point blank, you know, so you just got to accept it for what it is. All right, until next time, you guys, hit that subscribe button if you don't mind, the like button. Leave any comments. I'm sorry for this is going on and on and on.